Hi, welcome everybody. Welcome back to ForeignConnect Podcast. Today we have a special guest, Aman. Welcome to our show, Aman, today. So Aman, can you please describe me what you do with everything going on with you right now?
Yeah, sure. So I run an executive education company.
Okay.
I basically help non-technical founders, executives, and entrepreneurs
Yeah.
how to be more technically fluent. And when I say technically fluent, technical fluency means being able to understand technology and have intelligent talks with engineers, and also make high-level technical decisions.
Interesting. So that being said, I know that you have some like engineering background and everything like that. Can you give us a snapshot of like what's your background is?
Sounds good. So I am an engineer by training. I was formerly an engineer in Silicon Valley building self-driving trucks and artificial intelligence and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And besides that, I was also a business executive. I was doing enterprise sales both before that and after that. So I've had a strange career path where I started doing business, then I moved to high technology, and then I moved back to business.
I see. But that gives you edge, right? Like you understand the language of business people, but you also understand the language of technical people, and that puts you in a perfect position for you to teach this topic, right?
Absolutely. I hope so.
I see. So that's very interesting. So today I wanted to discover three very specific questions to you, right? The first one is how to thrive in an AI and tech-driven landscape as a non-technical person. And the reason I wanted to bring you into the show is some of our customers are running like IT solution company, and some are like managers and entrepreneurs who need to definitely learn this very specific topic, right? They have to hire engineers and they have to know what's going on, right? So I wanted to bring you in and specifically talk about this topic. So once again, my question is, the first one is how to thrive in an AI and tech-driven landscape as a non-technical person. What would be your advice for that?
Sure. So I think the advice would first of all be different for depending on what you plan to do.
Yeah.
But since you're talking specifically about managers, executives who are non-technical, but they have to lead technical projects in future, they have to hire engineers and manage engineers and gain respect of their engineers. I think the biggest advice is to not think about technology as much, but the first step is to be a student of your business. And what I mean by that is, so take an example of a business that has nothing to do with technology.
Yeah.
Just go for it. Give me an example.
So let's say makeup, cosmetic industry.
Makeup, cosmetics industry. Okay. So let's say you are like, let's go more specific. Let's say you are a business owner running like a makeup parlor or something like that.
Yes.
Right. And I guess a small makeup parlor probably wouldn't need too much technology. But let's say you have a successful makeup parlor, and now you want to scale it up. All right. There's literally three parts of the business. One is, how do you get your customers? Where do you find them, and how do you bring them to your doorstep? The second is providing the service, which means you get the supplies and you hire people and they provide the service for you. And then the third part is just keep the whole thing going, like circular, in a circle.
Right.
And so now I would ask you, with this business, if you could hire 100,000 people for free to work on your business, for free, how would that change your business? How would that change what you do? Right? How would that change your marketing? How would that change your scale? How would your sales? How would that change the way you provide the service? and when you take that question and give that question to someone who runs a makeup parlor, depending on how they think about the different parts of their business, you will come up with very interesting business models, right? You could say, oh, I would get people to go down every street of the country and just talk about my business, like just advertise for me. Okay, that's one way to put those people to work. The other is to, from the supplier point of view, like where do you find your suppliers? Do you get the cheapest price, right? How do you hire people to compare all the different products on the internet? And so, me personally, I don't have a makeup background, but that's just what I came up with, like how that changes. And it's very similar to how technology will change your business, right? Because technology basically allows you to do a few things faster. You can automate some things, and you can do things at a bigger scale because it's cheap labor in a way, right? That's what it is. And so for every industry, when I talk to founders, I have one executive student who is a gold mining executive from South Africa. He works at a gold mining company, and we talked about the gold mining business, how it works, what's the value chain, where are the inefficiencies of the business, and then we see, instead of trying to swing a wand, like a magic wand of digital transformation, which is not possible, you look at each little part of the business, of the value chain, and you see how technology could reduce the cost or make it easier or make it faster. And when you deploy technology in enough of these small parts, at the end of the day, you see, wow, I just made 30% more margins by just small changes.
Right. But how, as a non-technical person, how can you make sure that you get the right resources to right places?
Yeah, great question. So if you're non-technical, I think the one where I would start the answer is, I think the bad advice that you should not follow is to learn to program, learn to code. Don't take programming classes unless you want to for different reasons. But I think there's a big movement right now to teach everyone to code, because that's what everybody needs. And I totally disagree. Myself, as an engineer, I'm telling people to not learn to code unless they want to become an engineer. If you're an executive, what you really need to understand is the moving parts of a software system. So you need to understand just the basics of what is the front end, what is the back end, what is the programming language, what is code, what is a program, how does a computer work, at a very basic level. What is a database? Yep.
Is this something you teach also? Like, where can people go to learn these basics?
Yeah, unfortunately there are not a lot of resources in the industry which are geared towards beginners, like completely non-technical people. Because most engineers, when they write a book or an article, they write it for other engineers to read from their own community. I do have a lot of free resources on a blog. You don't even need to give me an email. Just you can just go and read the blog posts that I have, and I try to pass on that basic information. And I was fortunate because that's what I saw as a business gap for my own company, where there's a gap in the content in the education space, and I decided that I should fill it for other people.
I see. Interesting. So, second question I had for you is, how can executives and entrepreneurs, people who are in the management position, who are non-technical, can intelligently speak with engineers and also manage the hiring process and everything like that?
Yeah, so the thing is, so the first question is what is an intelligent conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
An intelligent conversation doesn't mean that you know everything and you're an expert in the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
An intelligent conversation is where two people are talking and they can completely understand each other.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if one is much less of an expert than the other person, right? Even in education, even a place where you are learning more from the engineer is a good conversation, as long as the engineer doesn't feel that you don't know anything and I have to teach you everything from scratch. Because that's a frustrating conversation for one side, right? So the key to an intelligent conversation is to, first of all, stay at the high level. So the manager should ideally try to understand enough of the high level where they can make high level technical decisions, like, all right, so this is the application we are building. Let's say and so I know what will happen on the back end. I know what will happen on the front end. What kind of system we are trying to build. The overall business requirements. You take the business requirements and you translate them into high level technical requirements. And then the intelligent conversation is basically to collaborate with the engineer. Okay, this is what I think. What do you think? And then how can we implement this, right? Because you're a manager. You're not being managed by the engineer. You are managing the engineer. So you have to tell them this is what you want as a business.
Yeah.
And then you build a partnership with the engineering team to reach that goal. It's like you are an architect or you are a homeowner and you're talking to the people who do construction. Like, okay, this is what I want. I want a staircase like this. I want a room this big and a kitchen like that and whatnot. And now the construction person who is the expert can talk to you about, okay, how can we achieve that? What are the resources you need? How much money will it take? What is possible and what is not possible, right?
So I mean, what we talked about actually brought me another question. So oftentimes what I witness in one of the challenge that people face when they work in a team, leaders often face this problem where they have something that they want to get done, like from business perspective, but at this point ignoring the technical perspective. But we come up with the idea and we want the engineers to work on it, right? So we have a certain level of expectation of what is possible from technical side. On the other hand, there's engineers who work in the actual field, who understand the reality of what is possible and what is not. So at this point, like the conversation the teams often have to face in this situation is, engineers really being frustrated about the expectation business people make without the technical understanding of the situation versus business people at the same time have this frustration about engineers not delivering what they expect, right? So how do you think is the optimal approach for leaders and also maybe engineers as well, like to basically create productive conversation instead of being frustrated about the gap in the expectation?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a difficult situation, definitely, because what's happening here is that two sides are living in different realities, right? And that's a pretty big big river to build a bridge on. And I think the onus is on both. The problem is on both sides, and the solution is also on both sides. I think for the first part, engineers often don't do a good enough job of patiently and respectfully explaining to their non-technical managers and leaders what their reality really is, right? And they don't really and they don't always understand also the business reality, that somebody has to pay for it, they have limited money, and they have some business goals that they would like to reach, right? And that and reaching that business goal is good for everyone, even the engineers, not just for the leaders.
Right.
And then on the other side, the manager, of course, they need to understand, they also need to live in reality, like this is what's possible, and you cannot change the physics of the world to create something that's not going to happen.
What is the conversation look like? What is the productive conversation look like then, instead of blaming game? Like starting the blaming game doesn't produce anything, right? Instead of that, what kind of conversation should it look like if we want to just focus on production instead of blaming game when that happens?
Yeah, I think it's mainly about listening. And I think the best way in this kind of situation, where if any of the people listening to this ever face this kind of situation, what I would suggest they do is to take turns. First, the business person, the leader, should go to the whiteboard or blackboard and describe the overall big picture from the business side. Okay, this is what the goal is. This is how much money we need to spend on this, and this is our perspective. Okay, and then after the engineer has been patiently listening, then the engineer can go to the whiteboard themselves and explain, okay, so at the high level, this is what is possible, why and why not, right? Because I think, again, being patient and really explaining your perspective about and treating them as smart people. And business leaders are also smart. It's not like if you actually try to explain to them, it's not like they won't understand or they won't listen. In most cases, I think. So it needs to be a one-by-one conversation where one is teaching the other and then the other is teaching the first.
Until now, we've been talking about managing, but now let's switch gear to hiring. Is there something leaders should keep in mind when they hire a technical person?
I see. So if a business leader doesn't have an expertise or even like good, deep enough knowledge about that particular, technology that is required for their product, the first, well, there's two parts to the advice. One is keep learning about that technology as much as possible. Okay, that is one parallel track of action. The other parallel track of action is that the engineers you need to be hiring at this point are those who are natural teachers.
Why do you say that?
These should be engineers who love teaching and who love sharing their knowledge. Because if you hire an engineer at this point, okay, you have nobody else on the team. If you hire an engineer to work on a technical product and he basically just does his own thing and he doesn't tell you how it works, then first of all, it's going to be very hard to manage them. It's going to be, that communication gap will stay alive, that we talked about earlier. And there's also a chance that the engineer can take advantage of the business leader. And they can go off into, or maybe not even due to intention, maybe unintentionally, they can go off in their own direction. They have their own understanding of, I think this is what the business person is trying to say, and I'm just going to build it the way I think makes sense, right? So the first few engineers that you surround yourself with as a completely non-technical person are those who love teaching. So a good way to see that is see if that engineer is used to giving talks. Does he write on a blog? Has he written a book? Does he give seminars? Does he teach other beginning engineers? Look for signs that this person enjoys teaching and explaining things.
Innovation is a must thing that all businesses have to have some sort of flexibility, and also we have to watch out for any change and new well, I wouldn't call it trend, but new technology that allow us to expand more faster, cheaper, like these are things we should always, even as a business people, look out to. So as a non-technical people, what would be is there any method that you recommend for us to keep updated on new technology that directly affects the way business operate? whether that's on marketing, whether that's like, for example, voice, the SEO,
Yep.
voice is
Yep.
like super, it's kind of coming. It's not fully there yet. Like people are kind of getting grasp of it. I'm watching out for it a lot. But like things like that, like how can non-technical people, I mean, for that matter, for in general, I think people in general, like how can we stay on top of this, like a new information all the time?
So the thing is, in general, if you're just generally looking out for technical trends, that just comes down to individual curiosity. Like how, like some people read the news much more than other people. I personally don't read the news too much because it's a lot of politics these days.
Right, me neither.
But if you're a business owner or if you're working in an industry, right? Then I have some more specific advice for people like that, because then again it comes back to number one, being a student of your profession, being a student of your business. So you understand your business inside out. You understand the economics of your business. Once you have that done, then you want to always look out for signals about how the latest technology might change the different modules of your business, the different things that go on in your business. Because any business, you could take that business as a block and you could break it down into small things that must be done, right? That is what a business is.
Right.
If I was a business owner and who wanted to stay on top of the latest technologies, because the want is necessary, I would advise them to have maybe a 1-hour session every month or whatever your cadence is, to bring a small group of engineers together and yourself and some business people, and just have a brainstorming session about, okay, where again it's the same conversation. The business people try to explain their business to the engineers, and the engineers can come up with ideas like, hey, I heard this technology is coming up, maybe we can do this part of the business more efficiently or better, or I think just being open to ideas from your own employees, from the engineers, and extending a warm welcome, like, okay, please help us make the business better. You're not just here to be engineers and write code or do technical stuff. You are also part of the team, and so we want to learn from you and get your ideas.
Right. So Aman, thank you very much for coming today for my show, the ASKForeignConnect Podcast. We had a really interesting insights from you, so I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.